Okay, well, forget about that. No, it becomes complicated then. Oh, I see you're doing panoramic. Panorama. This must be Panorama, the news show. I'll play some martial music. Today, Donald Trump bought Antarctica. Much better bargain than Greenland. Already inhabited by hard-working penguins. They are black and white penguins and taller than other penguins. I intend to employ these penguins as sentries, which will be cheaper for the Pentagon and nuclear bases, because they stand still for a long time. All you have to do is put an egg under them, and they just blow them with a blizzard machine, and they will stand there for 3 months without eating or drinking or moving. And this will be much better for guarding nuclear bases. How will they hold weapons? Well, I'm going to modify their right wings so that they actually become flight-capable penguins. Until now, they have been disadvantaged because they are only swimming penguins like submarines, at which they are very efficacious. But in future, they will be the flight heroes of America, with a missile stick attached to each wing and a jet engine at the rear, so they will be able to take off and attack enemy penguins coming from Russia, which has worse penguins, much worse penguins than the penguins we buy together with Antarctica. There's the waiter who is from Rome is going to be singing for 3 hours instead of serving food. Yeah, he does that 6 months every year. And we were talking to him. So now we have very expensive, but it's it's possible that it just means not two. That is the scale. Yeah, which I think is the stupidest amount that I've ever come across.
We could make a selfie with the better quality than the...
yeah, I think
okay, so. Yes, I will put a Guinness in order to...
Three people that continue to try to connect to Roberto.
Oh yes, and now it has been framed on camera, you know. So.
No, this is not a gay person. This is Francesco Recto.
Francesco Okay, now let's make the selfie.
Yes. Well, look, it's putting our faces into boxes.
Yeah. I think I did it, but I will now repeat it.
Little flags are circulating in our heads.
Okay, now I will do it again. Okay, I made it now too. And I also made a documentary of us taking the selfie because these are 2 jobs in the one.
Oh, yeah.
So we have also the video. Francesco and Magnet. It must be the shirt. Yes,
the rainbow shirt.
Yeah, the this is the reason.
It might be, but
It's misinterpreted as a rainbow.
they have not seen rainbows recently.
Yeah,
because it never stops raining. That's the ultraviolet blue end of the rainbow. There's a bit of the yellow, but it's missing out the most attractive end of the rainbow, end of the spectrum. And so, the rectum. And so we have blue and purple, and then ultraviolet, violet, and ultraviolet, and ultraviolet, and then far beyond the ultraviolet, we have. Oh shit, did I say that?
Okay, I will cut that.
I don't care, actually.
How many cars do you have?
All right.
No, you might have.
You see this one?
Did you show me now?
I accidentally saw something on Twitter this morning. Gail, sort of comics writer, asked a leading question. We're getting into a discussion of crossover fiction between C.S. Lewis and Charles Dodgson.
Yes.
Alice, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
And you mean the paedophile?
You're speaking about something completely inconvenient.
Well, I'm very sorry.
No, you're not sorry. Don't
Well, the only convenient thing is the inconvenient one, you know.
Pardon?
The only convenient thing is the inconvenient one in a way, you know, because all the rest is boring.
It's very good. Have you been to Fuji?
I have.
Oh, you have already. Well, everyone's been to Fuji once.
Everybody has been to Fuji.
At last your opportunity comes.
You will be assimilated.
The Fuji Virgin.
You know, you think I'm being satiric when I say for lunch you have 4 courses of pasta and for dinner you have 5 courses of pasta, but they're all different, unique, delicious.
Yeah. My problems I discovered when I got there was that my wife,
Yes.
she doesn't really like pasta even when it's vegan.
For dessert and instead of beer.
It's very good pasta, but it is pasta every single day.
3 times a day.
Yeah.
3 times a day.
It's like Italy.
My advice is just eat half of each course. I hope that you have big seagulls to which we can feed the rest of the pasta.
Seagulls,
Baby, first year seagulls. Christina went out.
The lurking seagull.
The lurking seagull.
Oh, Fincon, a seagull very, very, very nearly got a pastry right off my plate. The only reason it didn't was because I'd been
Well, it
warned.
was looking very, very
Waiting for Fiona.
hopeful, pathetic.
It started shrieking at each other on the way in as they dive bombed it, so I got a hand onto it.
Jeez.
No, it could be dangerous because they have quite a hard beat, but it's what it would have wanted. You know, that would have given it total satisfaction. I think they do have a tongue, but I think it's sort of hard and long. What are the tongues of seagulls like,
What?
The tongues of seagulls.
Yeah, we were.
I reckon long and lizard-like.
Long lizard-like, and are they hard?
I think they're probably rasps to strip the flesh off the bone of whatever they're eating.
No, I was wondering yesterday because they had a tongue.
Yeah.
If this ends up on YouTube, my lawyers will be in touch very, very quickly.
Yeah, this is for the bigger audience.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's true.
I'm just thinking whether they can advance to a higher form of intelligence, which was David Brin's criteria when he refused to eat Brian Stableford's wife's prawn curry. First of all, he asked a few days earlier, 3 days earlier, Bryn, who was visiting Reading, do you have any food problems? Because previous wife would like to cook prawn curry. And Bryn said, no, absolutely fine. But then he had a revelation during the 3 days until arriving. And when the prawn curry was put out, he said, I have decided that I will never eat any creature which might in future evolve to a higher state of intelligence.
So he's going vegan.
So he refused the meal.
No, but he can eat my brother in any moment.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, Bryn. Yeah, Bryn. Because it was David Bryn. He had an idea.
I mean, I admire his artistic rigor in pursuing this, but you know, you're kind of missing a lot.
Yeah, missing things. In fact, he ought to have had the prawn curry poured over his head, is what is what I think, after someone had laboured on producing the thing which he had okayed. I mean, never have revelations about food.
ragazzi, come dicevano. Basta, questa parte.
I think it's time for a pint, to be honest.
Yeah. We anticipated the problem.
We're going one at one?
We're going at one at Flora's request.
This is the most international little angle of.
Almost the most intelligent.
Yes, well, this is a.
That's an Eastern European gesture.
Well,
Because
whatever.
I said the word went by, intelligent. Yes.
This is the message from Latvia.
Vienna is also the European Capital of Culture next year. We might have some programming items in common with them, but there's going to be a lot of cultural programming all around town throughout the whole year, so if you're there, you might also want to visit many other things. Next slide, please. We have entered a partnership with the University of Rijeka since we are using their buildings at full time.
Some of you know that Armenia was supposed to be too, and Darius and all the others are really nice people. We are sorry that they have these internal fights, so we told them that it's so hard to work on a bid, preparing a bid. So we told them that if they have panels or something else that they would like to bring to our Eurocon, they're more than welcome. We really look forward to. I mean, of course, we would have loved to win anyway, but not in this way. What I really like of Eurocon is the ambiance, the atmosphere, So we have assholes in Italy too. So.
Oh, that's great.
Absolutely.
Absolutely great. Pardon me, but I count that it was my best solution in this convention to go around.
He made public Trabanos in Berlin a few months before the video.
If you see me or read about me, you will disappear.
Yes, Imants is the master of disappearance.
Yes.
And there will be a story called The Hugo Which Never Was, about a story that made everybody who read it disappear.
Yeah, actually it's absolutely right, because nearly every second science fiction writer whom I met died after half of the year.
Yes.
Yeah, you know about it. So happened with Harry Harrison, Robert Holstock, and many others. So beware of me.
The very big danger of meeting Imants, the main character of the story that nobody who read it could tell about it.
If in convention you didn't buy me a beer, you disappeared definitely.
This is the offer you can't refuse.
It's a good
The idea of a short story, to write a story set in the future, but in the very near future, let's say in 1 hour later. The problem is you need more than 1 hour later to write it. So what happens?
Yeah, good.
Should work about this, but I don't have a solution.
Actually, I can say absolutely honestly, for 1 glass of beer, I sell this idea of story, proud story.
Yes, to many people.
Not too many, just for Roberto Claudia.
Okay.
Because he's my loveliest author.
Yes, but everybody who watched this video is also invited to offer you a beer for the right to write the same story again.
Otherwise, they disappear.
Yeah, because the more people write the story, the more people will disappear, which is very ecological.
Yeah.
Better be.
Or are they going to Cappadocia here? Okay, they are with now, please.
And I also wanted this.
Yeah, okay, I'll share you a bit of
Are you seeing her? No, Cappadocia.
I want
Laura was 7 years old. And she told me, Mommy, I always wanted to have a sister. And we even look alike.
We're not paying much attention to you.
No, they're fine. I'm just
Enjoy your meal? Yeah, okay, enjoy you.
And then we have a lot of other guests which Flora takes care of, coming from the TV shows and the start. Yeah,
I
the
remember
start.
this. Yeah. Chase Masterson.
Yeah.
And Fajita. What's it called? Fajita.
Lolita Faggio.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
This has to be repeated for the posterity immediately.
Yeah.
So we are the stupidest.
We are the. Hello, Regina.
Hello. So we are the stupidest.
We are the stupidest species which could have created a technological civilization. Oh, we're doing very well, thank you. As we came here especially, we always keep our word.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes,
and I'm really, really happy for that. Because you don't know how many people say like, okay.
I want to be in the mood as well.
Yes, I already feel a bit about. Oh wow.
Okay. Pizza capricciosa.
My God.
Pizza marinara.
Oh, that was me, thanks.
Thank you for...
You're more than welcome.
First seat.
I'm really happy. I decided why to have pizza because it's huge.
My God, it's beautiful, this pizza. It's really beautiful. Also for Italian standards. Yeah.
Now it will always remember and be imprinted with the memory of Blue Mother. Oh yes. Number two.
This is the problem, yes.
And the parent is thinking, my lessons have succeeded.
Yeah.
Well done, Papa. I am proud. I am proud of you.
All this has been.
Actually, I think that one looks fat enough.
You make someone happy, so it's always good.
Yes, Ian.
Whoever, whatever, whichever.
So that people know, because at the moment there are not even information.
Radek, you translated a lot of science fiction books. What do you think? Would it be possible to do something like this? Have maybe some kind of network for sharing?
First of all, with English, from English into Polish. And from time to time I have a kind of a look into other possibilities, not practicing, but simply seeing how it goes with publishers.
And
Okay, yeah, that's me.
Okay, I'm afraid it's going to be a little bit longer because I'm Spanish and Spanish are Carlos. My name is Mariano Martin. I'm an academic, I'm a PhD doctor in philology, and for like 10, 15 years I've been interested in science fiction, fantasy, and speculative fiction.
But it still like takes them some time to understand that in order to get the stuff from the language, they need to like reaching out or paying for the translation fee instead of like waiting for those stories to be translated into English. Because I know like although many of the markets they are now paying like the author's payment and translators payment separately, still many of the publishers they think, okay, so if you're not writing in English, then the writer and the translator should split the payment. And that's like half as like the English authors are getting, which is not equal at all.
No,
which I don't want to talk about that. But one thing interesting to mention about the translation is that when science fiction, like as a like genre as it is today, came to China in late Qing dynasty, many of the translation was actually translated from Japanese into Chinese, like Werner was translated into Japanese, and then Lu Xun and other people translated those stories from Japanese into Chinese, and they've done a lot of like adjustments, like they even like kind of rewrite the story when they are translating those stories into Japanese, into Chinese, just for their purpose of saving the country at that time, because they think science fiction is kind of a tool that can enlighten people and educate people about science and like a new form of society. And as for like the translation nowadays, we've like the company I'm working for, Storycon, and the job I'm taking responsibility of, we are working with Clarksworld on the Chinese science fiction translation project. So we are working with translators from different backgrounds. Many of them are bilingual speakers, but for example, Ken Liu, he has been almost doing his entire education in English, so he can not actually like well, I believe he can, but he doesn't write in Chinese. He talks in Chinese properly, but he doesn't write in Chinese. But all the education was done in English. We also have translators like Andy Dudok, who was who has studied Chinese, but like it's more he's an American. And
the only languages in the movie were Chinese, Russian, very little English, and a lot of French.
And Japanese, some.
Yeah, a lot of French. I say, oh, well, it means that for the Chinese, the future is not Anglophone. Maybe they are right.
Oh, yeah. and the point...
I like French very much, by the way, so...
Yeah, the point is that it's not Americans only saving the culture, saving the world. Even if it's a Chinese movie, it's like Chinese and like Russian, Japanese, and French, like all the people like from all different cultures, they kind of unite together and put in the trigger and save the world together.
Except Americans.
Yeah,
Americans are fully, they are not even mentioned.
Yeah. There's a lovely scene in Independence Day where but the point is, there is globalization, and if you're looking at science, if you're looking at space flight, for instance, the Americans are not at the forefront. At the moment, we've got so many European projects, we've got Chinese projects, we've got Indian projects, we've got an Israeli project. It's changing. So is that going to make life easier for the people who want to read other science fiction?
I think there's also further development, which is helping, is internet. Earlier it was very expensive to publish journals and magazines. Now it's not. They don't even put subtitles. Never. They don't dub and they don't put subtitles. So how can they watch a foreign movie? A movie that is not in English. Mm-hmm. Americans sometimes they put subtitles. At least.
Well, I mean, very well. So, since this is a non-Anglophone science fiction panel, I would like to ask each of you if you're aware of any non-English book that has been translated in your country in the last 3-5 years?
A lot of Russian science fiction, but maybe not so many now. And also we translate like from like Polish, the witchers, yeah. Then yeah, there are quite a number because like the Chinese market are used to translations, so we translate from like all other languages.
In Spain.
Oh yeah, just to add that your book is also going to be translated into Chinese. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, congratulations. In Spain, one has to distinguish between the science fiction market, which is quite narrow, and very few works in other languages are translated if they weren't translated into English first, which narrows very much the choice. But on the other hand, there is the mainstream publishing industry, which is quite strong in Spain, it's the fifth in the world, and quite a few novels are science fiction, but they are not marketed as such, and they are not sold as such. A good example is Soumission by Michel Houellebecq. He's a postmodern friend, maybe the most famous postmodern writer from France.
I went through dozens of them. I was in Australia at the time thinking I had loads of time to submit, and then I get a note from...
I have my own records, of course, but fortunately, over the years, a few people have made role-playing games of these things, and that's wonderful because then I use that as a reference book. Steve Jackson Games was the first one to do it. He did the one that Kevin worked on. There was one before that John J. Miller put together, cataloging all of the characters from the first 6 books and a map of New York City with all of its landmarks and lots of stuff in that. And then a decade or so passed and that license expired and we got a new one with Green Ronin Press. And again, John J. Miller stepped in and did like 3 books. So they're amazing reference files that I can use. Up to that point, I still, every time someone creates a new character, I send out a biography of that character and I tell everyone, print this out and put it in your 3-ring binder. And we did that for years, until recently, this last go round, I found that some of these younger writers didn't know what a 3-ring binder was, or the concept of printing things out was foreign to them, so I had to educate them.
Yeah, and sometimes the 3-ring binders get misplaced. I think Melinda is the only one who really still has hers, and I guess George, you've got yours. But I remember a story with her, and I was like, okay, I know that Walter created a number of characters, including Lady Life, who just stepped on the page a bit, and we had the bios, but it's like, what was her official name? Do we have that page? And Walter was on his way to Tao's Toolbox, which he was running, and says, well, it's never appeared on the page, just make up one, but since she's a romance writer, she could have multiple pseudonyms, and everyone was good with that.
There was an interesting question. If anyone here is thinking of doing a shared world at some point, you have to work out the mechanics ahead of time, and you have to lay the legal groundwork. The first modern shared world, you can go back and there were shared worlds. H.P. Lovecraft basically created a shared world. He invited his friends and other writers to make use of the Cthulhu mythos, and when they did, when they invented some accursed books, he took that accursed book and used it as his own thing. So they were sharing in a sense, but the first modern shared world was Thieves' World, edited by Robert Asprin and Lynn Abbey. And Thieves' World was immensely successful. It was a huge hit. It began at a Worldcon, actually, with an argument in a bar over who would win, Conan or Elric. And of course, that can never be settled once two of them appear in a story together. But they created Thieves' World, a sword and sorcery world, around the city of Sanctuary, and he invited a number of people to come in and play in that sandbox, and they did. I don't want that. So, yeah, time travel. You could do a time travel series or something like that. That might be fun. But as an incidental thing added to Wildcards, it's disastrous. But we let it in one book because it was a very controlled kind of thing, and I think we did a fun job about it. But we're gonna stay away from it.
Yeah.
Henceforth. My books sell pretty well too. We approach J.K. Rowling, and we can't get that. The studios will just not give you any sorts of meaningful breaks. So what you have to do is choose the people to work with who hopefully love your material and will give it as much respect as possible, and they will also give you giant truckloads full of money. And you can take solace in that when things change. Sometimes things change, mind you, and they're actually improvements. I mean, some people in Hollywood are pretty smart, and there are some good creative people there. I think, I mean, other people in the panel may have their own opinion, but in my case, my opinion would be that 98% of the time the book is better. But please note that 98 is not 100%. I think Steven Spielberg's Jaws is better than the book. I think The Godfather movie is better than The Godfather book by Mario Puzo. And there are a few other examples like that in the history of Hollywood, but very few.
And, industry practitioner. Well, I guess my first contact with Chinese science fiction was when I was young, still a primary school student. I was reading those magazines, and on the magazines there are usually like science fiction stories, and well, that kind of attracted me. And later on, I moved to reading more like Chinese fantasy, which unfortunately, like not many, like well, I guess none like fantasy magazine exists in China now. Well, but we do have several more science fiction magazines in China. And after entering university, I started to do SF Apple Core, which a local fan organization doing a lot of events. And later on, I started to write my own stories. And last year, I started to write in English as well. Yeah.
So my name is Joey Yu. I'm a writer of fantasy and sci-fi. I also write for comics, games, and there's no a single hero, and when you need to achieve your goal, you take your family into account. You don't sacrifice your family in order to achieve a larger goal, but then you protect your family in a way. So that's the kind of a very implicit way that we export our culture in a way. So that's very culturally rooted. In terms of political, I don't know. Like we have one movie, so I can't really.
Really happy with these awards, and I'm waiting for the day that we will have an Asian Science Fiction Award, and we will have a South American Science Fiction Award, an African Science Fiction Award. Thank you very much.
Awards to Sarah Callaghan, Greg Egan, William Gibson, and J.R.R. Martin in Romanian. Thank you again.
Standing ovation.
It was. But it is one of these things that from the very, very, very beginning of Titancon, back when it was a mere moot, it was always a dream of this convention to have George as a guest of honour. And wonderful now that in the year of Eurocon, when Belfast is the Eurocon, that we have him finally here. So we are deeply, deeply grateful. Thank you so much for coming over. Thank you.
Thank you for all of that, and although she's not here in this hall, I would also like to mention my wife Paris, who is a supporter of Titancon from the very beginning, and encouraging this madness. sorry that she's just recovering from surgery, but she did come here and she enjoyed the parts of it she could see, and she thanked you all very, very much. She loves you guys.